I never thought a single strand of hair in the drain could change my entire life. Yet there it was, blonde, shimmering, and completely out of place among the usual silver strands that marked my age. My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 67, a widow for 15 years, and after all that time, I thought I'd finally found a second chance at love with George Miller. 72, a man who seemed perfect in every way. For 3 years, our life together had been quiet, comforting Sunday brunches, gentle evenings with shared memories, and that sense of companionship that comes after both of us had lost the people we once loved. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic fireworks, just a steady, predictable rhythm that made my heart feel safe again. That Tuesday morning began like any other. George had left early for his weekly golf game, promising to pick up a few groceries on his way home, and I was humming an old tune while cleaning our shared bathroom. That's when I noticed the hair. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things, perhaps a leftover strand from a previous day. But holding it up to the light, I knew instantly this wasn't mine, nor could it possibly be George's silver hair. The color was unmistakable, the kind of golden blonde that seemed to announce itself in any room, loud and impossible to ignore. A chill ran through me, a mix of shock, suspicion, and a slow-burning anger that I hadn't expected to feel at this stage in life. My mind raced with questions. Whose hair was this? How did it get here? And why did it make my stomach twist in ways I hadn't felt in years? I carefully placed the strand aside, keeping it as evidence, while telling myself to stay calm, to think logically, and not to let the fear of betrayal cloud my judgment. I knew then that something was off, something beneath the surface of our peaceful routine. For women like us, women who've lived, loved, lost, and survived the realization that someone you trust might be deceiving you carries a weight that's both heartbreaking and galvanizing. It isn't just about romance. It's about respect, honesty, and the right to protect your own life. And in that moment, as I stared at the drain and the golden strand of hair curled around my fingers, I couldn't help but wonder what was going to happen next. Who had dared cross the line into my life, and how far would I have to go to find the truth? Over the next few days, I became a quiet observer in my own life, noting every detail of George's behavior as if I were piecing together a mystery I never wanted to confront. The little things began to stand out, the way he checked his watch more often than usual, the extra care he took with his phone, the sudden enthusiasm for errands that seemed to conveniently take him out of the house. Nothing overt, nothing dramatic, but enough to make me pause. And then there was Clara, my best friend of over 40 years. She had always been part of my life in the most comforting ways, shared secrets, shared grief, laughter after our husbands passed, and those long afternoons at the Senior Center Book Club. I never imagined she could intersect with George in a way that would hurt me, but life has a way of twisting the familiar into something unrecognizable. Scrolling through her social media, I noticed something that sent a jolt of disbelief through me. Clara, who had been a proud redhead for as long as I'd known her, was now sporting golden blonde hair styled in loose waves that framed her face beautifully. My heart sank as I connected the dots. The hair in my bathroom drain matched this new look perfectly. That simple strand of hair, the one I had almost dismissed, suddenly carried the weight of a secret that neither George nor Clara had confessed. I felt a storm of emotions, anger, betrayal, disappointment, but underneath it all, a strange clarity. I had lived long enough to know that panic and rash actions only cloud judgment. I had to remain calm, deliberate, and observant. I watched George closely, noting every phone call, every glance, every unexplained absence. I compared it with Clara's recent outings, social media posts, and subtle changes in routine. Each small detail added to the picture, like puzzle pieces forming a reality I wasn't ready to accept. Then the deeper truth hit me. George's patterns weren't isolated to Clara. He had a history, a habit of rescuing lonely women in the past, filling their lives with attention when they were vulnerable. It wasn't romantic love as we think of it. It was neediness, a desire to be needed, and a pattern that left heartbreak in its wake. the realization made my chest tighten. The man I thought I knew, the man I had allowed back into my life after 15 years of widowhood, had been walking a familiar path I had never signed up to follow. Yet even in my hurt, I stayed methodical. I documented his behaviors, I kept my composure, and I kept watch over the evidence in my own life. The anger simmered beneath the surface, but it was sharp-focused and ready to guide me when the time came. For the first time in years, I felt both vulnerable and powerful, aware of the betrayal, yet fully capable of deciding how I would respond. I knew the truth was unfolding before my eyes, but the next move was mine alone. And as I sipped my tea that evening, staring at the golden strand I had set aside, I understood that the confrontation was inevitable, and it would demand every ounce of my wit, patience, and courage. By Thursday, I knew it was time to take matters into my own hands, but not with anger or confrontation. I wanted George to feel the consequences, yes, but I wanted it done smartly, subtly, and without losing my composure. That's when I hatched my plan. I would replace his expensive botanical shampoo with a hair removal cream, strong enough to make him panic, but carefully disguised, so he wouldn't suspect a thing. I spent an afternoon at the drugstore scrutinizing every product, reading the warnings, and selecting the formula designed for the most stubborn hair. Back home, I mixed a tiny amount of his original shampoo on top to mask the smell and appearance, then returned the bottle to its exact place on the shower caddy. Every detail mattered: the angle of the bottle, the cap tightly screwed on the scent, faint but familiar. Phase 1 of my little operation was complete. The next morning, George showered first, humming his usual tune, oblivious to the trap. I pretended to read the newspaper, my heart steady, my mind calm. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his expression was subtle but telling a frown, a pause, a hand running through his silver hair that now had small, almost translucent patches. I said nothing, only offered a casual comment about the weather, watching him adjust his comb and inspect the mirror repeatedly. The tension that followed was deliciously ironic. Here was a man who had prided himself on his composure, suddenly vulnerable and anxious over something so trivial, yet entirely deserved. As he prepared to leave to see Clara, he pulled a baseball cap low over his forehead, trying to hide the thinning patches. It was a mix of humiliation and frantic care, and though my actions were subtle, the message was crystal clear. Actions have consequences. Through it all, I maintained my calm, a small smile on my lips, embodying the empowerment that comes from control over one's life. I wasn't shouting, I wasn't dramatic, I was simply orchestrating justice with precision. And in doing so, I felt the thrill of reclaiming the power that betrayal had tried to steal from me. It was more than just a prank. It was a statement a woman of my age with decades of experience could handle: betrayal with intelligence, grace, and effectiveness. The humor of George's discomfort mingled with the tension of what was to come, creating a situation that was satisfying and instructive. I wasn't just punishing him. I was proving to myself and to anyone watching that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, and entirely unforgettable. The following weekend, I invited Clara over for what I knew would be a difficult conversation. I prepared myself with care, my favorite tea set, laid out a quiet space free from distractions, and a resolve that had been hard-earned over decades of life's lessons. As she arrived, I could see her hesitating, aware that something in the air had shifted. The moment we sat down, I spoke calmly but firmly, laying out the evidence, the strand of blonde hair, the changes I had observed, the patterns that didn't add up. Clara's face fell, her eyes flickering with a mix of guilt and apprehension. I watched her closely, noting every shift in her posture, every hesitation in her voice. My heart ached, not just from the betrayal, but from the realization that someone I had trusted completely had crossed a line I never expected. Yet even as disappointment and hurt surged, I maintained control. I spoke with precision, each word measured, each question designed to bring the truth into the open. George had been cornered too, though not in the same room. When he admitted reluctantly and with visible discomfort that he had a history of rescuing lonely women in the past, the truth of his pattern became painfully clear. It wasn't a matter of a single lapse in judgment. It was a recurring behavior that had repeatedly left heartbreak behind. His charming demeanor now seemed fragile, stripped of the comfort and trust I had allowed into my life. Clara tried to justify her actions, attempting to explain her choices, but there was no excuse that could repair the breach of trust. The respect, the honesty, the foundation of our friendship, everything had been compromised. In that moment, I made the decision that had been forming quietly in my mind. I was ending my relationship with George. Clara, no longer someone I could rely upon, was removed from any consideration as a beneficiary in my estate. It was a painful but necessary boundary, a declaration that trust and integrity are not negotiable, even with those we love most. But ending relationships and cutting ties was not the full story. I turned my attention to what I could do with my resources, my lifetime of careful planning and hard work. Instead of letting betrayal dictate the future, I redirected everything to a cause that mattered: the widow support group at our local senior center. Every penny, every asset became a contribution to women who needed strength, guidance, and community. Women who had been overlooked, just as I had once felt invisible. As Clara left and George faded from my life, I felt a mixture of sorrow, relief, and empowerment. I had made choices rooted in clarity and self-respect, demonstrating that even after betrayal, women of our age have the power to reclaim their lives. The decision was mine alone, and it sent a message far beyond the personal sphere. It was about dignity, about self-determination, and about building something lasting for others. In that quiet afternoon, I realized that while relationships may fail and trust may be broken, the ability to act with integrity and compassion on your own terms is a power that no one can take away. After months of turmoil, I finally made the decision to close that chapter of my life for good. Selling my house wasn't just a financial move, it was a symbolic release of the weight I had been carrying for years. Every corner, every memory, every object held echoes of joy and heartbreak, but I was ready to let them go. With the proceeds from the sale, I booked an extended trip across Europe, determined to rediscover myself and live fully on my own terms. From the sunlit harbors of the Mediterranean to the ethereal northern lights dancing over icy waters, I gave myself permission to explore not only new places, but the woman I had become. Evelyn Harper, independent, resilient, and unapologetically alive. This journey was about more than sightseeing. It was about reclaiming my life and understanding the lessons that had been whispered to me through years of experience and recent heartbreak. First, I learned that living for myself before living for others isn't selfish, it's necessary. For decades, I had prioritized the needs, happiness, and sometimes the desires of those around me, often at the expense of my own well-being. It took betrayal and disappointment to remind me that my instincts, my voice, and my joy matter, and protecting them is not only a right, but a responsibility. Second, intuition and careful observation are more powerful than any weapon. That single strand of blonde hair in the bathroom drain had been my signal, my first clue, and my guide. Paying attention to the subtle signs in life allows us to act with clarity, confidence, and strategy, instead of being blindsided by deception. For women in our age group, recognizing and trusting our instincts is an invaluable skill that grows stronger with every experience. Third, middle-aged women wield a quiet but formidable power. We have the ability to navigate complex situations, make hard decisions, protect our assets, and preserve our independence. Society may underestimate us, but our wisdom, resilience, and life experience equip us to handle betrayal, loss, and unexpected challenges with remarkable strength. I channeled mine not through confrontation, but through deliberate, empowered choices that ensured my life remained under my control. And finally, the ultimate lesson I discovered: the best revenge is living well. Acting with grace, intelligence, and decisiveness rather than inflicting pain is infinitely more satisfying. Thriving, exploring, and embracing my life fully became my response to betrayal, my declaration of self-worth, and my celebration of freedom. It was living proof that empowerment isn't about punishment, it's about reclaiming your life on your own terms. To all of you watching, remember this: your life, your choices, and your peace are precious. Protect them. If this story resonates with you, please like, share, and comment below. Your voice matters, and by following Real Her Stories, you'll discover more tales of women facing real challenges with courage, heart, and authenticity. As I step onto my ship for Europe, I feel lighter than I have in years. Behind me are the betrayals, the heartbreak, and the lessons learned. Ahead lies the vast horizon of possibility, adventure, and self-discovery. At 67, I am finally living for Evelyn Harper, not the widow, not the caretaker, not the friend, but the woman I choose to be. I am confident, self-reliant, and ready to explore the world and myself with curiosity and courage. And that I've learned is the sweetest, most enduring revenge of all.